Horror Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you. I'm your Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is week 373, and yet it is another random week, and yet it is another Italian week as I look at Lucio Fulci's 1981, an adaptation from a short story from Edgar Allan Poe, The Black Cat. And again, I did say 81. This movie is tucked in right between City of the Living Dead and The Beyond. And if there's any real connection to the latter, it is David Warbeck is in this thing as Inspector Gourley from Scotland Yard, who arrives at this small little village to investigate this seemingly rash set of murders that is taking place that no one really can explain what's happening, or disappearances of people. So David Warbeck, and he of course will go right on into The Beyond, like almost literally, like production is done and boom, they are traveling to go put The Beyond to film, right? So the film does have that weird sort of unique thing of being tucked between two films that make up the Gates of Hell trilogy, which is really pretty cool. So this is the Arrow release, The Black Cat, and if you can see this, this is, and being between these two films, tucked really right in the middle of the Gates of Hell. Of course, Contraband was done just a little bit earlier as well, so so he's really busy right now, that being Lucio Fulci. And he does have a little bit of the cast of helpers on this, as cinematographer Sergio Salvati. Of course, we know him from Zombie, right? The Gates of Hell. Psychic. He will shoot this picture, and Tomasi will edit, of course, Gates of Hell. But as well, you might not know that Tomasi also edited Cannibal Holocaust, which is pretty cool. But he does have, for composer, not Fritzi, but he does have Donaggio, who would do films like Don't Look Now from '78, I think, Carrie, of course, the original Carrie, Piranha, The Hallowing, Raising Cain, and I mean, he has just got a huge filmography in terms of just a vast amount of movies that he composed, just a huge vast. And then on the special effects, of course, Gary Alano, if that's how you say his name, Nightmare City, New York Ripper, he'll work with Fulci again, Don't Torture a Duckling, Contraband. So no De Rossi as far as special effects, but he does have a couple main contributors in terms of helping him put this film together. And it is a loose adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Black Cat. Some liberty is taken, of course. The writer, I can't remember the writer's name, but the writer was known at the time for having penned numerous adaptations from Poe. So it may be a reason why Fulci tapped on him. Plus, he was doing this film as a favor for a certain producer. I can't remember the name. But The Black Cat, in terms of this film, okay, in this loose adaptation, and Fulci's sort of stamp on this classic short piece by Poe, this film is weird. If you're familiar with The Black Cat, of course, our main antagonist, the narrator of the story, who abuses, tortures, kills his cat, all this stuff will sort of come back to haunt him. But in this film, things are turned, it's weird. It's like this film has sort of it can't escape being impacted by the Gates of Hell trilogy. Even the soundtrack eerily at points is either reminiscent or foreshadows themes. I know this ain't Fritzi doing it, but there are just moments where you would just think that Fulci perhaps is honing in on a few techniques here and how he tackles this that he'll revisit again, whether immediately with The Beyond or House by the Cemetery. He's going to revisit the technical approach of how he does this film. So in this case, in this film, Patrick Magee plays, he is an antagonist, but maybe he plays a Professor Robert Miles, But maybe the real antagonist is the cat. We have Mimsy Farmer, who plays Jill Travers. She's sort of this girl who just journalist, or I don't know if she's a journalist, she's a photographer, who just sort of shows up unannounced to this small village to do some photography, which is interesting. David Warbeck, of course, again, Inspector Gorley, he will come from Scotland Yard. And Cliver from Zombie, right? He will be our Sergeant Wilson. He's the guy who actually calls David Warbeck's character. And it's so funny because the first time they actually meet each other, Warbeck comes flying through into the village on his motorcycle, is stopped by Sergeant Wilson, and then ticketed. And even though he's from the famed Scotland Yard, that can't, save him from being fined for speeding in through a small village, which is pretty cool. So you got these characters, right? And as this story unfolds, really, I'm not going to give too much. You have Professor Robert Miles by Patrick Magee, which he is freaking awesome in this role. He's he's a professor, probably of the occult, maybe, whatnot. We're not given a whole lot of information on him, but he is in that habit right now of going out into the cemeteries, which allows for some very creepy shots. And basically with a microphone, basically recording the sounds of the dead and then listening to them later on. And he is somewhat also known as somewhat of a medium in the village. Now, he has this past relationship with this one particular girl who will come into the story. Name escapes me right now. But it's when her daughter comes up missing that she will go call on Professor Robert Miles and hope that our past relationship will win her the ability of him sort of intervening and trying to find her lost daughter for her. So you got a lot of things going on. Really, this movie is somewhat strange because it's not really clear from start to finish the role of the cat, the role of the professor. They both antagonize one another, but you almost get this sense. Now, I just for fun, my favorite dictionary in the whole wide world is Webster's 1828. You seem to get some very interesting definitions when you go old school. When you look up the word cat, something as simple as that, right? What you find tucked in the middle of a pretty lengthy definition is this idea that in terms of a cat, that it is known to be a deceitful animal and when enraged, extremely spiteful. And when you carry on the word spite one step further in Webster's 1828, what we find is that the effect of extreme irritation and is accompanied with a desire of revenge or at least a desire to vex the object of its ill will. Now, you take those two definitions and you really have this idea that at the core of this story, you have this malevolent creature, this malevolent force that is this black cat who is sort of feels rivaled by this professor who attempts to maybe control the cat to gain the cat's ability to go out and do some mischievous deeds for it. But you get this idea that this cat, being this malevolent force, is waiting to just break out and really show what it is capable of doing. And that will come when the professor gets tired, where he feels like things are starting to maybe close in on him in terms of the inspector getting closer. And of course, Gorley and Jill Trevor's characters, those two will sort of unite, and together they will start basically figuring what is going on, which includes a very supernatural aspect involving this cat. So when this professor finally gets to the end of the road, he thinks he needs a quick way out of this whole situation. Too many people have already died. What he does is he tortures and kills this cat. But as a result of killing the cat, its malevolent force sort of breaks open, sort of calls, it kind of calls back to Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, "Strike me down." And basically, you have no idea what you are unleashing here. Well, this cat, once this cat is destroyed or dead, which he will, I think he tries to poison, then he hangs the cat, which is kind of a disturbing scene. Some of it is off screen. But you get this idea, right? And so when this malevolent force breaks out, the cat turns its full attention on the professor. And then sort of by creating a set of a domino effect, will basically pin this professor down to the point where his own actions will come back on top of him and be on his undoing. So really, I think you got to get this really dark, supernatural rivalry between this malevolent force that is this cat that feels like it's being rivaled by this professor, who the professor thinks maybe perhaps he's actually controlling, because the people who seem to be dying are being killed in these horrific accidents, one being in this airtight room that involves this guy and this girl, which is pretty... it lends itself to one of the more gratuitous moments. There's a full burning effect, which is pretty disturbing as well. But as all these horrific accidents are happening and these people are dying, most of these people, I think if not all of them, have some connection to the professor, or this professor, for whatever reason, has a grudge against. And so he feels as though he is controlling this cat to do his action, but what he doesn't realize is the cat will turn the table around on him and have, in effect, the last laugh. And so, really, it's an interesting movie. The score by Donaggio is sort of weird because at times it just doesn't feel like it fits at all. But so it sort of feels misplaced at points. But the cinematography by Salvati is freaking awesome, man. When you get from the perspective of the cat being down low and where the camera takes you, from the cat's vantage view, is really super, super cool. And it really does. I mean, you watch it a few times and it does feel like a movie that's tucked in right between the Gates of Hell trilogy. Although it never takes a whole lot from these films, the atmosphere is there. There's the ambiance, I guess. The close-up on the eyes, of course. Eyes play huge, whether it's going from the professor's eyes to the cat's eyes back to the professor, or even when Inspector Gorley has his moment with the cat. This cat has the innate ability of hypnotizing people, and then which causes them to get themselves into a horrific accident, like a car accident, say what, maybe, perhaps. So, I mean, it doesn't get a lot of talk. Now, it does have a really awesome, the Arrow release, I was going to say, it doesn't get a whole lot of talk and kind of chatter that his other movies do, but it's well worth revisiting or checking out. And it does take a few multiple views, but it is, I think it's one of those movies that once you watch a few times, it really sort of grows on you fast. And there are just really eerie, creepy things, especially with this professor's up to, in terms of his work in the cemetery, and how Jill actually stumbles on him by going down into an open crypt and finding a microphone, which leads her to the professor. So he's kind of up to some creepy stuff, which is really sort of weird. And you sort of get all these things working together. And but it is a reflection, a minor reflection of some of the things that we've come to, grow with Fulci. And the atmosphere is definitely, some of the shots in the cemetery are awesome. So really, it is a loose adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's classic, The Black Cat, maybe with a touch of some of the Gates of Hell ambiance, Fulci's touch, of course, the use of the camera, and it is a fun. Now, I was going to say real quick on the Arrow release, you do have another great Stephen Thrower documentary, as well as Chris Alexander has the commentary on here. Of course, we know from Rue Morgan, Fangoria. And so, I mean, there are definitely some extras on here worth tapping into if you do not have the Arrow release. And so anyways, The Black Cat in week 373. What do you think? Have you ever seen it? Are you going to see it? Any thoughts? Drop them down. Hit the like. We appreciate all the support each and every week, each and every day that you guys do just by tapping in and watching. And be with us as we are slowly but surely heading towards another theme week, an October theme week, which is sure to be fun. And yeah, if you've never checked it out, check out Lucio Fulci's 1981, The Black Cat. Well worth revisiting for a lot of reasons. And we always leave these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.